Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hope you guys are doing well. A quick preview and prediction for Naoya Inoue versus Nonito Donaire. Of course, this is the World Boxing Super Series Bantamweight final, and it's also a unification fight. Of course, Naoya Inoue holds the IBF Bantamweight title, and of course, Nonito Donaire holds the WBA Bantamweight title, so really good fight, a lot on the line. I'm really looking forward to it. But yeah, let's talk about the tail of the tape, and we'll go from there. We will start with the favourite, Naoya Inoue. He has a perfect record of 18-0, 16 of his 18 wins coming by way of knockout. He's 26 years old, and he is an orthodox fighter. Nonito Donaire has a record of 40 wins, 5 defeats, 0 draws. 26 of his 40 wins come by way of knockout. Donaire is 36 years old, and he is also an orthodox fighter. Naoya Inoue, he is listed as 5'5", with a 67.5 inch reach, whereas Nonito Donaire is listed as 5'7.5", with a 68 inch reach. So Nonito Donaire is the taller, longer guy, and the bigger guy in general. He has a 2.5 inch height advantage and also a 1/2 inch reach advantage. So all in all, Donaire is just the bigger man. I mean, he has campaigned at featherweight, for example, whereas this fight is taking place at bantamweight. So the height, reach and bigger frame of Nonito Donaire is something you need to consider. It is something to think about, and potentially maybe Donaire could make that count on fight night. He will certainly be hoping he can. Another thing, just by looking at the records, you can tell Nonito Donaire is a lot more experienced. He's had a lot more fights, he's been around a lot longer, and ultimately Donaire has fought a much higher level of competition, win, lose or draw. He can draw on his vast experience for this fight, so potentially that is another advantage for Nonito Donaire on top of his size. But on the flip side, you can say, well, yeah, Donaire is more experienced, but he's also been through a lot more wars, he's taken some losses, he's 36 years old, he's seen better days, and quite frankly, he's not the fighter he was a few years back. So yes, he is a lot more experienced than Naoya Inoue. However, he's got a lot more miles on the clock, he's been through some wars, and he's not as young and fresh as Inoue. Inoue has got a lot more in the tank in comparison to Nonito Donaire, so that could also be a factor. It's clear to see Donaire isn't the same fighter, but maybe this is the fight where Donaire really does get old overnight and there's nothing left. There's always that possibility, especially with lighter weight guys like bantamweights, especially guys who are 36 years old and have had long hard careers like Nonito Donaire. So yeah, that is the brief tale of a tape. Let's get into the style clash. I've got to say, naturally, I am favouring Naoya Inoue in this fight. Ultimately, he's favourite for a reason. He's the guy that's been touted for pound credentials. He's the guy who's came into this tournament with all of the hype and momentum. And basically, from when the tournament was first announced, Inoue was expected to breeze it. So far he has. He looked great in knocking out Juan Carlos Payano and Emmanuel Rodriguez. He dispatched those guys in very good fashion, and they were great performances. But to me, those guys don't pose the same danger that Nonito Donaire does, even a 36-year-old Nonito Donaire at that. Those guys didn't really have the power of Nonito Donaire. They don't have the physicality of Nonito Donaire, and they never had the experience of Nonito Donaire. So make no mistake about it, Donaire, in my opinion at least, is much more of a threat than Payano and Emmanuel Rodriguez. Having said that, of course I am favouring Naoya Inoue, and I am picking him to win this fight. Ultimately, I am favouring the youth in this one, and I think in this fight, the bodywork of Inoue will be key to, chopping Nonito Donaire down. Donaire, of course, is making bantamweight at 36 years old. He's a big dude, he's got to get down to a really lightweight to make this weight class. So, maybe he doesn't have an easy time making this weight. It would be a good idea for Inoue to get to that body, and he does that very well. Inoue, in my opinion, is one of the better body punchers in the sport, lovely hooks to the body, uppercuts to the body as well. And, you know, he breaks guys down with those shots. And a 36-year-old Donaire who may be having a hard time making weight, you know, those body shots of Inoue could be key. Obviously, Inoue is an aggressive fighter, and that's what he's going to try to do. But, you know, while he tries to close that distance, while he tries to get to that body, he still needs to be very careful. Nonito Donaire is a guy who is very crafty. He sets traps extremely well, and he's got very good timing, especially in that left hook. You know, if Inoue is caught slipping, he comes in with his hands low, which he has done sometimes. If he does something stupid like that, and he gets timed with that big left hook, it could be lights out. So I expect Inoue to approach this fight similar to most of his fights in his career to date. You know, boxing on the front foot behind that jab and really walking his opponents down. I expect him to do the same here, but I expect him to be a lot tighter, a lot more defensively aware, you know, keeping a higher, tighter guard and, you know, making sure he doesn't get caught with that left hook. Maybe he'll come in a bit lower, you know, jab to the body and get on the inside. But yeah, I think this is the first fight in Inoue's career where he really needs to be aware of what's coming back. Throughout most of Inoue's career, he's had the luxury of being the bigger man and, you know, just being basically able to walk through people, you know, particularly at light flyweight and super flyweight. He could just walk through these guys. Against Donaire, that style of fighting will be very risky. So while applying that pressure, he needs to be a lot more tight defensively and he needs to be aware of what's coming back. You know, maybe that could be his undoing. You know, he's not had to do that yet. And like I said, if he's caught slipping by Nonito Donaire, he could get his ass knocked out. I will tell you this now. Naoya Inoue would have never felt power like Nonito Donaire's, especially the power he possesses in that left hook. I'm telling you, Inoue's never felt anything like it. The likes of Koei Kono, David Carmona, Omar Narvaez, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Jamie McDonnell, these guys don't hit anywhere near as hard as Nonito Donaire. They don't. So, you know, that could be a shock to the system when he gets caught. If he gets caught, you know, we'll see how he responds. And that is a big question mark in this fight, you know. That punching power of Donaire is real. And at times, as good as Inoue is, as aggressive as he is, as offensively gifted as he is, he does sometimes get caught coming forwards. Not so much in recent fights because he's knocked his guys out so early. But, you know, guys like David Carmona, Ryoichi Taguchi, you know, these guys did find the target as Inoue was coming forwards. So if Donaire can catch him with those same shots, who knows? Like we say, Donaire is a real puncher, especially at bantamweight. And for the record, Donaire has actually never lost at bantamweight, you know. So there's that to consider as well. I think Donaire in this fight, you know, he just needs to try to use Inoue's aggression against him. He needs to try and capitalise on those defensive mistakes. You know, as Inoue's coming forwards, at times he holds his guard too low. You know, in certain fights, he's been open for that left hook. And that's where I think Donaire's best chance lies in this fight. It's basically capitalising on Inoue's defensive mistakes as he's coming forwards. You know, maybe Donaire could also look at timing Inoue's low left. You know, sometimes Inoue will throw a jab and he'll bring it back fairly low. You know, maybe in that instance, you know, Donaire could try to come over the top with his right hand. Donaire's right hand is quite effective, doesn't use it enough, but, you know, it's a good punch. Ultimately, like I said, Donaire needs to play the counter-puncher. I think he needs to go back to his old style where he wasn't just this left hook happy puncher. Back in the day, Donaire used to set a lot more traps. He used to feint, he used to change levels, and he would try and lure you in to big punches. I think he needs to go back to that style in this fight and also try to capitalise on the mistakes Inoue naturally makes. But ultimately, I think we have to go with a younger man. I just believe his pressure, his work rate, his pace, his body work will be a bit too much. And I have Inoue winning this fight by knockout in the mid-rounds. I do believe he will stop Nonito Donaire, but I believe it will be a fun fight while it lasts. Don't be surprised if you see Inoue hurt for the first time. I don't think that's out of the realms of possibility, but yeah, I expect Inoue to win this one. Good fight though, and it's not out of the realms of possibility that we see an upset. Would I be shocked if Donaire knocks out Inoue? Not really, a bit surprised, but not shocked, to be honest with you. He certainly has the power to do it. But yeah, just a quick preview and prediction for Inoue versus Donaire. We have Inoue by mid-round stoppage. Share your thoughts below. Peace.